Greetings, fellow Gorehounds, and welcome back to a Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru.
And I'm Count Jackula.
And today we're going to talk about Salem's Lot from writer-director Gary Dauberman, who was the writer on the last two It adaptations, but not the director. This is the first time he's directed a Stephen King thing himself. And this is an interesting movie to talk about because, on one hand, I enjoyed the movie a lot.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, as a Stephen King fan, I also know a lot of what it's missing. So I feel like I have to put it on two scales. There's the scale of how much I enjoyed it as a movie, and then there's the scale of how disappointed I am as a Stephen King fan, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, but I think like the nice way of putting it is the biggest problem with this movie is that it's not a miniseries.
No. This is like a Cliff Notes speed run through the book Salem's Lot with a lot of changes and a lot of things condensed and a completely different ending, which we'll get to in the spoiler section because it's actually one of my favorite parts of the movie is what they do at the ending of this story. As its own thing, it's a lot of fun. It's almost like a Sam Raimi-esque take on the tale with like flashy camera work. It's really fast paced. Its tongue is firmly in its cheek throughout most of the movie. Yeah. And it's super colorful.
And I really appreciate the fact that they really emphasize the vampire invasion aspect.
Absolutely. In a sense, it almost reminded me a little bit of like 30 Days of Night, the way it handled that, which was a Sam Raimi produced production. So that's probably why I'm getting some Sam Raimi vibes from this.
Yeah.
But in terms of like what this movie's missing, a lot of the stuff it's missing is a lot of the meat, a lot of like the substance of the characters, like their backstories, a lot of the complexities of their relationships. It's all simplified for this movie. Necessarily so, because it's just a 2-hour movie as opposed to like a 6-hour miniseries.
Yeah, or a Stephen King novel.
Exactly. Now, would I have liked to have seen the 6-hour version of this? Sure, I would love to see all the details from the book in, but as its own movie, it's fun.
It's very fun. It's really good. I want to particularly give a shout out to Alexander Ward, who played Barlow the vampire.
Oh man,
he's really cool.
He's so good every time he's on screen, and he's not on screen a lot because he's in the shadows for most of it.
Yeah.
When he is on screen, he steals the show when he's on. It's glorious. All the actors actually do a pretty damn good job with all of their roles.
Yeah.
And they're really good at delivering really condensed versions of the dialogue scenes from the book because they have to relay so much information in such a short amount of time. There's a lot of economy of storytelling.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it doesn't feel like it's just an exposition factory.
No, it doesn't. It actually feels like what if they had actually made like an 80s movie out of Salem's Lot to begin with.
100%.
You know, whereas before it was a made-for-television miniseries.
The kind of like depressing tone that a good Stephen King adaptation usually has, this has, but it's a lot more muted because there's a lot more action happening.
Yeah, because the plot has to move at such a furious pace in order to get everything into 2 hours.
Absolutely.
You know, because in the original story, I wouldn't say it was a slow burn, but like a lot of Stephen King stories, the first 2/3 of the novel are a lot of dread.
Yes.
A lot of dread as to what is about to or could happen. And it's really like the last third where it goes buck wild and it's a full-blown vampire invasion.
Absolutely. It's a lot more fun and ghoulish, for lack of a better way of putting it. And there's a lot of just really good imagery in this movie. The way this movie is shot, I can't praise enough.
Oh no, it's really good.
The camera's always moving, but not like a Michael Bay movie where it's moving pointlessly. It's always like to move the story along.
Yeah, it does one of those really good things that Alfred Hitchcock always would warn people about. He was like, never use an establishing shot to establish.
Yes. It's always doing like 3 things at once, right?
Yeah. Every establishing shot is actually like hidden within like a visual exposition or like another dialogue shot, you know, like it's done really well and it's seamless and the movie flows incredibly well.
And there's all these really great, like, matching fades between scenes where, like, the last shot of the scene matches, like, the composition of the first shot of the next scene.
Yeah, it's got a lot of shining fades.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just really cool to watch. As a movie, I enjoyed this movie. I highly recommend this movie. It is a 7 or 8 out of 10 as its own movie. If you're here for all the details from the book, like the backstory of the mansions missing in this and various other things, then you're going to be a lot more disappointed. It's going to be a lot more like a 4 or a 5 out of 10 if that's what you're here for.
Yeah. If you really wanted to see the plot of the book made into a movie, they nailed it. If you want to see the book itself actually come to life, that they couldn't do because there's just too much information.
Yeah.
It would have required it to be like 4-6 hours, which could have been done. I mean, they could have done it like Midnight Mass.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
could have done it that way.
I would have totally
watched it.
100%. And I'd be curious to see if there's like more stuff that's on the cutting room floor, because I know this movie was like delayed for like a year.
Yeah.
So like there could have been like some reshoots and stuff that happened over the course of that year.
If there were, you can't tell.
No, the movie's pretty fucking seamless. The only thing you can tell is that the movie is moving at a fast pace.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Whereas Salem's Lot actually moves pretty slowly in the beginning.
You never get bored, and it never felt too fast. It actually felt like it was a decent pace. We're running with the economy of storytelling here. Like we're going to hit the beats, and we're going to make sure you get all the information in as concise a way as possible.
Yeah. That way it's actually really impressive.
Yeah, it is. In that sense, it's actually like amazing what they were able to pull off here. I was actually surprised at how much was still in this movie.
Yeah.
Because there were characters that I expected to be completely cut out that are in this movie. They're not in it a lot, but they're still in here, and they have little moments. There are characters that are completely cut out, for the record, but like some of the characters that were kept in, I was surprised at.
Yeah.
And everyone does a good job. Oh man, I love the kid playing Mark, little obsessed with horror kid who figures out the vampires all on his own. I fucking love that kid, and I loved watching him piece everything together as the movie goes on.
Yeah. Well, that's a Stephen King archetype. The kid who figures it all out because he understands weird shit. The original Salem's Lot, Cycle of the Werewolf, aka Silver Bullet.
Yep. The teacher is great in this. I really liked watching his little journey, even though it's kind of sad. It's sad and short-lived. He dies in a different way in this movie. We'll talk about it in the spoiler section, but he dies in a different way from the book. The gender-swapped Dr. Cody. I like the gender-swapped Dr. Cody.
Yeah, gender-swapped Dr. Cody really worked.
They do something a little different with Father Callahan in this, but I liked what they did with it. The writer and Susie, I think, did a really good job. He is the Stephen King stand-in for the story.
Yeah.
The writer who's struggling to write their next work and are dealing with their own demons and trauma.
Yeah.
And he's handled well in this movie. I kind of expected him to be, because I figured of all the characters, they were probably going to put a lot of focus on him, and they do. And I liked the way that the movie was still able to show their relationship blossoming in the background without like putting complete focus on it.
Yeah.
There'll be like one scene where one thing's happening, but then you see like she's in the bedroom hiding naked with him while that's happening.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, okay, they've graduated to that step in their relationship without actually like showing us them straight up hooking up.
Right, without having to spend like the 10 minutes it would have taken to set up and pay off.
And I love that economy. Like that's good economy of storytelling right there.
Yeah, there are a lot of, for those of you who read Salem's Lot or seen the 80s miniseries, you know that there are a lot of twists and turns with all of these characters. Yep. And what's impressive is that the way they condense them, even somebody who's unfamiliar with the way that the story unfolds is not going to feel like it was rushed. Like they make sure to maintain an immediate connective tissue with everything that happens.
And I was impressed at how well they did that.
Yeah, it was actually really impressive. There's a lot of the first 2/3 of Salem's Lot that is just Dracula in New England.
Well, exactly. That is famously what Stephen King did with Salem's Lot. Was just like, what if I remake Dracula but set it where I grew up? Essentially.
Yeah, exactly. But with that said, I was still impressed with how much the Renfield guy was actually in the movie.
Staker.
Yeah. How much Staker was in the movie as Renfield.
Actually, it might be Straker now that I think about it, but whatever. You know what we're talking about.
It was
the Renfield-esque character who is delightfully over the top in this movie.
Yeah.
They also, if you've seen the miniseries, they recreate some of the iconic shots from that miniseries, but they do it in a more modern way, and I thought all those held up.
Oh, yeah.
Like the kid outside the window shot, that's pretty iconic. iconic from the miniseries. I thought they did a good job with it in this movie.
Yeah, and also the blinking light and fucking Barlow's behind.
Yeah, one stylistic choice they made I thought was fucking brilliant, and that was the glowing crosses.
Yes.
Throughout this movie, when the vampire is close by and there's an actual christened cross, the cross will literally glow like a lightsaber.
Yeah.
And you can use it to light up the room that you're walking in while you're trying to find the vampire.
You know? It's also the warning light, there's a vampire nearby.
Yes. And that's what I liked about it, is that it served multiple narrative purposes, and it was one of the many tools they used to allow the plot to speed along faster.
Yeah.
So Salem's Lot is currently available on Max. If you want to go see it, you should go to Max and check it out, because it's got my recommendation. But take note of my two different takes on the movie from those two perspectives. If you are the hardcore book person, you're probably not going to be interested in this movie. But if you're here for the cinematic experience the movie's willing to deliver, then you're going to have a good time.
Yes. Yeah. I recommend going in with the idea that you're going to see not the book, have the adaptation expectation.
Absolutely. And with that said, let us move on to the spoilers so we can talk about the awesome ending to this movie. I will say one thing. I was kind of hoping they would kill that kid on screen when when he captures that first kid. I was kind of disappointed when it cut away. I'm like, oh man. But then the movie continued to deliver with the blood and the guts as the movie went on. So I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, you have your line. Your line is you're not going to show this kid get eaten on screen.
Yeah, we're not going to do the first 5 minutes of it. That's the difference.
Which I kind of expected, given that, he wrote that movie. So maybe he was going to go there. But he decided to hold back this time and build up to the first appearance of the Dracula figure.
Yeah, the first appearance of Barlow.
Exactly.
Jesus.
And the first proper experience is actually one of the big changes from the book, actually, is when he kills Father Callahan.
Yeah.
Which is a great scene where, Father Callahan's faith just literally fails him.
Yep.
It's a great example of what I mean by, utilizing something like the cross glowing as a storytelling tool, because watching the cross start to blink and fade because it's the physical representation of the priest's faith was a pretty brilliant move.
Yeah.
Visually getting across the idea of his faith literally fading in the presence of the monster.
Yeah. Oh man.
It's a great moment. I did like that even though they weren't willing to show a kid getting eaten on screen, it did show us the kid smashing the Renfield guy's head open.
Yeah. One of the things I always kind of liked about a lot of the kids in Stephen King stories is they are unfortunately initiated into the world of adult violence.
Yeah, it's true.
They have to do it. Why? Well, it's that or die.
Well, yeah, because every kid in a Stephen King story, they always have to come of age.
Yeah.
So to speak. It's always a coming of age tale in some capacity for them, whatever their portion of the book is.
Yep.
They have to. They have to confront that and grow up in some way. Sometimes it's a little fucked up the way it happens, like in It.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a thing.
And sometimes it's a little bit more straightforward,
Yeah, like in Here or Silver Bullet.
Or boys just finding a dead body and having to grow up fast,
Oh, man. That's still one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations.
Hell yeah.
Stand By Me.
It's a great one.
Yeah.
It's a great one.
Woo.
There's a lot of Raimi-esque visual comedy in the movie. My favorite being, there's a point in which the sheriff has decided to fuck off out of town and not help anybody.
Yeah, because he's a piece of shit.
And the character that had the conversation with him before he left reunites with another character. The other character asks, what about the sheriff? Were you able to get a hold of him? Through the fucking window of the church they're hiding in, the sheriff's body smashes through the fucking window and lands right in the middle of the church with the sunlight or the moonlight just beaming down on him.
Yeah, he wanted a lot of help.
That moment to me is just the way it's shot, the delivery of the comedy. This feels so Raimi.
Yeah, that felt very Sam Raimi.
The big change to the ending of this movie is that, first off, it doesn't take place years later, in the original book.
Yeah, they go right to it.
It doesn't take place in the mansion either. It takes place at the drive-in. There's a drive-in established really early on in the movie. It's where everyone goes into town because there's nothing else to do in the town.
Yeah, it's where the whole town hangs out.
Exactly.
You know?
It's where people hang out to get drunk, get laid, everything in between. There's this great conceit that all the vampires are hiding in the trunks of the car until nighttime.
Yeah.
And while the sun's going down, it goes down behind the drive-in screen. So there's literally a shadow that is crossing over the trunks as they start to open up and like crawl out.
Yeah, because these vampires only burn in direct sunlight.
And this is a great example of what I mean, that this movie visually is fucking amazing, because this entire sequence, which is purely visually driven because it's an action scene where they're trying to kill all the vampires before sun completely goes down, and like the shadows.
The shadows getting longer and longer, getting towards the kid.
And the trunks are all popping up.
Run!
It's just pure cinema. It's pure cinema. And it's cinema in a way that sequence wouldn't translate as well to the page.
No.
In a book, that wouldn't work, but for a movie...
In a movie, it works perfectly.
It works amazingly. You know, they have to knock down the fucking, like, screens so that the sun will burn all the vampires.
The last rays of the sun will get rid of all the minion vampires.
But then, of course, the big boss vampire is still around that they have to contend with, and he's chasing down the kid, and, like, it's a fucking great sequence. The writer has to deal with his new girlfriend who has turned, which, by the way they did her mom turning into the new Renfield, I liked that. I liked that a lot.
You had to have that confrontation.
Yeah, and the mom is the main thing that's like caused her to be stuck where she is. It's the thing constantly dragging her down.
Yeah.
And then in the end, she's literally the one to drag her to hell, right?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
You know, she's the one that turned her into a vampire and turned her into one of the horde that is serving Barlow.
Yeah.
If nothing else, you should watch the movie for this sequence. If you already know the story, you could almost skip to this sequence and just watch this ending sequence as an alternate ending, because it's the same two characters who are there in the end, right?
Oh, well, you can find me here on YouTube. I stream every weeknight at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we talk about all kinds of groovy things like horror, mysticism, boobs, and Transformers, because they are more than meets the eye. Boobs are also more than meets the eye.
Oh.
There's also the rest of your face.
Fair enough.
You know?
They are more than their boobs.
More than boobs. Yes. Yes.
Y'all know me. I'm the Horror Guru. You can find me at the Horror Guru on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, Facebook. Just look up the Horror Guru or Blood Splattered Cinema and I'll be there. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And if you'd like to help out either of us more directly, be sure to check out our Patreon pages. And remember, if you decide to go the Patreon route, even $1 a month can go a long way, but we will certainly accept more. And if you made it this far into the video, then I want you to comment below, and be sure to comment below using the hashtag Drive-In Vampire Massacre. Use the hashtag Drive-In Vampire Massacre. I know it's a mouthful, but you're typing it, so it should be okay. Use that hashtag, that way I know. That way Jack knows. That way the whole world knows that you at least saw the ending of this movie, which was pretty damn cool.